All right, so what's up, and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, this channel is all about the freight broker business, the trucking world, how it works, how we navigate it, and how we try to build the best business in an environment where there's a whole lot of chaos. So today I want to talk to you about pricing. One of the most important things in the freight broker business is pricing. Pricing in the freight broker business is equivalent to location in the real estate world. It is critically important to your success as a freight broker. You got to get the pricing part right. Now, if you want details on how we arrive at spot rate pricing, I'll leave a free video somewhere up here, and it'll give you details on how we use the load board to get pricing that works for you and works for your carrier. Now, a lot of you have a problem with pricing because there's no X plus Y equals Z formula. You're looking for a formula to get the right price every time. But it does not work that way because there are a lot of different lanes. And in different lanes, there are different lane dynamics, different things that are happening within that lane that affect pricing. There's not the same amount of trucks in every lane. So supply and demand plays into that. So that will determine what the price is going to be in lanes. There's a lot of data out there that we evaluate to come up with what your price will be. Now, with that said, what I want to talk to you about today in particular is contract rates. And why we're talking about contract rates is because I don't know successful freight brokers that don't have contracts with shippers. Because what contracts really do is they pull freight out of competition. You see, if I have to compete every single week for lanes, that's going to get tough. Sometimes I'm going to win, sometimes I'm not going to win, right? But if I'm already in contract with the shipper, for example, I'm in contract to move a load from Charlotte, North Carolina to Atlanta, Georgia, then all of the shipper's freight that's going from Charlotte into Atlanta, I'm moving those loads on contract. These are not tenders that I have to fight for. They're automatically sent out every week or however often that load moves. So that's the good part of contract freight is it's consistent, right? Now, what's the bad part? Because if you know the good, you also want to know the bad part of contract freight. What do people fear? Well, what most people fear is that they're going to give a shipper a price for a 12-month period, and they're not going to be able to honor that price for the entire time. That's what they really fear. Now, here's the deal. It's not rocket science to give a 12-month price. But we do know that prices can change when the lane dynamics change. So here's the deal. If I give a shipper a price for a 12-month rate, number one, I'm not just going to evaluate the last 30 days or the 90-day period and give them a price. I need to evaluate an entire year, the last 12 months, what this lane has been running at, the ups and downs, the peaks, the valleys in this lane, and come to a balance, an equilibrium of where I need to be on this lane so the price that I give works throughout the 12 months. But you and I know stuff happens and things still change in lanes drastically sometimes, and it'll affect price. When that happens, let's say that you're in contract for $1,200 on the lane that we mentioned, and suddenly lane dynamics change and you cannot run that load for $1,200. Let's say it went to $1,600. Well, you can't afford to lose $300 or $400 every time that load moves. So now you have to go back to your shipper and talk to them, pull them in conference and talk to them about what has changed in the lane. Be able to explain that in detail. And you guys can come to an agreement to change the rate on the lane. If they don't change the rate, you're not able to take that loss, you have to walk away from the contract. You see, that's the interesting thing about the contracts. You're not bound where you have to stay in that contract for a 12-month period. Neither does the shipper. If they don't like how things are going, they can get out. If you don't like how things are going, you can get out. But it's not about getting out. We don't want to get out. but the door is open for you to get out if you need to. The example we gave, if the lane just goes up and the shipper does not want to go up on the price, then you have to exit that contract, right? So don't be afraid to get into contract because you're afraid that the pricing is not going to last for the 12 months. It should last for the 12 months. Sometimes, of course, it changes, but for the most part, if you give a solid price, you can move a lane for 12 months. And if you can't, then you back out of it. That's simple. But you don't give up the opportunity to get contract freight because you're afraid of those types of lanes. No, you got to get comfortable with that type of freight. Contract freight is what's going to allow for you to have some breathing room so that you're not competing on every single lane that you are getting, right? And when we really start to look at contract freight, it's also going to help you build a relationship with your shipper. Because one lane is building for the next lane. When we're building relationships with that shipper, what we're doing is showing them. Because it's one thing to talk to peace, but it's different to show a person that you can get loads moved consistently at the prices that you quote. Because so many people quote prices and they can't move those loads. So we want to establish a solid relationship with shippers where we build a relationship on our word, right? We give our word and then we do everything that we can to make sure we do according to what we say. That's how it works. That's what contract freight and building relationships around freight is all about. That's your job as a freight broker. If you do that, you can be successful, but if you don't, you won't. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Now, a lot of you kind of get scared when you hear this idea of providing prices back to shippers because you don't know what they're going to say. Or you think they're going to say, oh, that's way too high, or whatever it may be. But if I were you, I wouldn't concern myself with what shippers are going to say. Usually, it's a cool conversation when you're talking to shippers. It's not like it's, a lot of people think that somebody is just waiting to bite your head off. Nah. Most of them know that you are a brokerage, you are a business, you're trying not to get customers, and you're giving pricing based on what you can get loads moved at. So don't worry yourself over what someone else is going to say about your price. You just have to quote a price that you can move loads to your carriers. They can make decent profits, and you can make a profit as well. Understand this. Pricing is about you making a profit. Pricing is about your carriers making a profit. We are in the business to make profits. A lot of you spend a lot of time thinking about discounting freight. If you want to discount freight, everybody has their thing. But I don't think it's necessarily just about discounting freight, because if you just base it all on discounts, then that's what they're looking for. And it's not about service, it's about you giving them the best price. And when you don't give them the best price, guess what happens? You don't get the freight, right? So, I think that your service should be more based on how well you perform the service instead of the price, right? I wouldn't be trying to sell on price is what I'm saying. I would be selling on performance, the service. I hope that makes sense. That's what I wanted to share with you today. Certainly hope this information has been helpful. If you're interested in learning more about the freight brokerage business, I have a free link in the description box. It's a link to my 5-video series. It's titled How the Load Movement Process Works. And what it does is it brings you into the office with me, and you get to watch me as I move freight. I talk to shippers, I talk to carriers. That way you can get a really good understanding and see the interaction between a brokerage and a carrier, a brokerage and a shipper before you come into the business. That way, you're not surprised. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. And also, if you're ready to get that load board, you can check out the description box as well. We are affiliated with TRUCKSTOP. I happen to think it's one of the best load boards in the business, and you can get it 1 month for free just by clicking that link. Not going to cost you anything additional. It'll just give you 1 month free to the best load board in the business. Till the next time, see you at the top, because the bottom is much too crowded.